A very feisty day of debate in the House of Commons as the opposition asks why the feds would loan $400 million to Algoma Steel, knowing the company was set to cut a third of its workforce. Ontario also gave the Sault Ste. Marie Company, which is Canada's last standing independent publicly owned steel producer, $100 million. The province echoes the Prime Minister, saying it was a choice between saving two-thirds of the company and losing it all. But is either government succeeding in selling that message? Let's bring in our front bench to talk about that. Kevin Deagle is a vice president at Crestview Strategy. He held senior roles in key portfolios in the Trudeau government, including at Natural Resources Canada. Sharon Carr, next to him, is a CTV News political analyst. She's former Deputy Chief of Staff to former Finance Minister Bill Morneau. Jamie Ellerton is the principal at Canaptus and worked for Minister Jason Kenney during the Harper government. And Sebastian Skamsky, here in studio with me, was former Director of Media Relations to Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Nice to see you on this Wednesday. Sebastian, I'll start with you on this. I've said on the pro, I said to the MP, Mr. Sheehan previously, I understand why when you loan a company money, you want to figure out if it's viable and that, certain things would have to be in place, including this move to electrification that cost all these jobs. What I don't get is why nobody was honest about it, essentially, until the CEO said so.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really astounded, and we saw some of the clips from QP, which were really revealing. Prime Minister Carney basically said, once this was revealed, thanks to the reporting you guys did, that this is part of the future. I think Canadians need to recognize that part of Prime Minister Carney's vision for this country, unfortunately, involves mass layoffs across multiple industries. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen. Stellantis was given tens of billions of dollars by the government. And we saw what happened weeks ago, some months ago now, where they said they would be shuttering production. Lumber mills across in BC and Nova Scotia have been shutting down left, right, and center. Prime Minister Carney and his cabinet, unfortunately, won't tell you that this is what the result of their inaction is going to lead to. But we are seeing now, increasingly, that it's just leading to job losses. Prime Minister Carney ran an entire campaign predicated on the fact that only he could deliver the results for Canadians when it came to dealing with President Trump. And he set his own deadline to July 21st. It's December, and all we have seen are job losses.
I would have forgotten that if not for the Conservatives reminding
right.
Kevin, I do think, though, to Sebastian's point, what these layoffs and the reaction to them and the constant questions over Stellantis and the other layoffs show us is, despite this overall strategy to wait Trump out, there are real impacts in the interim that are going to become major political challenges, I think, for all levels of government, anyone who's in power as well.
This is exactly right, Vashi. And I understand the Conservative instinct to lay all of this at the feet of Prime Minister Carney, but we need to remember that we are in a tariff war against an economy that is 13 times our size. They were our largest trading partner, and now they're tariffing us to the tune of 50% for steel. So steel's a great example. Algoma has been shut out from American markets, and the Canadian government is responding to this and helping them pivot away from coal blast furnaces to electric arc furnaces, which are more competitive, more sustainable, and so on. But they're helping them shift. That's not to say that we are not going to experience pain, and I don't think Canadians expect us that we won't feel pain. We will take hits. This is the U.S. They are our largest trading partner, and they are attacking us in a lot of ways. So we need to be expecting these. I think to date, Canadians have been pretty patient with Carney's approach to wait out taking a bad deal in favor of getting a good deal. But I think we'd be naive not to expect that we will feel this pain. And of course, my compassion and my heart does go out to those experiencing these layoffs. And the hope is that we don't experience further ones, but I think the likelihood is that that may come.
Yeah, and all of that makes sense. I think what's lacking, though, is just candor. Sharon, nobody in advance, again, of last night was like, hey, this is the decision we made because they had to make this pivot. We knew it would cost these jobs. Here's our plan for these jobs. Everything feels kind of ad hoc, which is surprising given that none of it was a surprise.
Yeah, so the biggest issue I think here is the communications and rollout of how all of this came out. If both the province and the feds are saying listen, I know the Conservatives are going to call us out on this, but it was basically a, do we save the baby or do we throw it out with the bathwater? And I think the failure on even Algoma's part was kind of communicating what this is going to look like. So there's 1,000 jobs that are going to be lost. Is it temporarily lost? Are they going to be reskilled and brought back? What type of functions and programs are going to be put in place to support them in the meantime? Sault Ste. Marie is not a very big place where 1,000 jobs can be absorbed very quickly. So that message needed to be made clear. And I think that's where the fault should lie, is that they didn't roll it out as they could have. But again, we are facing a global trade war with our largest trading partner. And for us to be naive that there's not going to be some pain, I think it's not practical. And I would say that the government needs to use this as an example that if there are other industries that are going to be impacted, if there are people being directly impacted after funds are being given to the government, to the company, there needs to be a better rollout on how that looks, because it's just before Christmas and this is not something anyone wants to have to go through.
Yeah, and just to clarify, like I totally understand what you're saying about a lack of clarity, but like the CEO was clear, those jobs are gone. Like last night, he was unequivocal. Maybe there's some retooling, maybe 500 jobs over some period of years in the new operations, if those operations should succeed, which is a big if. But right now, the 1,000 people who are a part of the operation who work in the old way of doing things, as of March, it will be over. On the broader point, Jamie, of what it means for when we try to get back to the table, or how fiercely we do try to get back to the table. An interesting thing to keep our eye on is, of course, that the Prime Minister is headed back to Washington. He's going for the FIFA draw. So nothing official on the schedule about meeting with the U.S. president, but Trump is going to be there, too. I'm told there's a period of time backstage where they will both be there. Like, what kind of scrutiny will the trip face, do you think?
I think there's going to be scrutiny because anytime the Prime Minister of Canada goes to meet and be in the same room with the President of the United States, genuinely, like a media circus follows and all the cameras are there overanalyzing and analyzing every single moment. And so I think that's definitely going to be part of what is going to come out of that. But I think when you look at the Prime Minister in question period today, I fundamentally just think he missed the mark. You're talking about 1,000 people who are about to hit the EI rolls 3 weeks before Christmas. And he's there essentially as a cheerleader for macroeconomic things that he likes, and kind of totally lacked empathy, and I kind of really thought missed the moment and kind of showed himself to be quite out of touch with the frontline realities of what's going on in the trade war. And so the master negotiator who does really well in the boardrooms and in those kinds of settings, as a retail politician, I think you saw the limitations of where Mark Carney is right now. And so I think when you look at what is going on, and as it relates back to your question on the trade deal, actions, I think, speak louder than words. Sebastian's already pointed out he missed a self-imposed deadline of July. And I think it's increasingly clear that the Prime Minister would rather punt on making a deal than to rush a deal to say he has one and have it be a bad one that's going to have longer-term consequences. And I think where he's really kind of failed in this part of this first 9 months of his prime ministership is to actually lay out a coherent vision as to what we're working towards, acknowledge some of the trade-offs, and kind of play for a rallying cry to bring people on board as to what we're working towards. Right now, on so much of the big files of the day, he's trying to play both sides and kind of buy himself some time. And I think there's real risk that that's going to catch up with them.